What's going on, everybody? It's your boy Fearless here, and today we're going to talk about melody, sound selection, how you can know what things are going to sound good together, and start mastering the art of sound selection on your melodies. So let's jump right into this. So the first thing to keep in mind is you got to figure out what kind of a melody you're going to be making. So your melody is going to match your beat. So you're going to have trap beats, you're going to have more orchestral melodies, you're going to have like some tropical melodies, you're going to have like drill and dark trap, you're going to have hyper pop, and the list just keeps going and going on. And then obviously you have like your modern day trap sound. So we're going to go over each of these different sounds of what kind of instruments are commonly used and how you can start getting better at picking out the sounds that you're going to use for them. Okay, so the first thing that's really helpful if you start doing this is active listening to your favorite rap songs, trap songs, what have it. Start listening to these songs and like picking out what kind of elements and what kind of different instruments they're using in those songs, and this is going to help you pick together what you like and what sounds work for what different categories. So for a modern day trap kind of sound, what you're hearing nowadays is a lot of guitars, a lot of pianos, some flutes, and then like synths and pads. All of these things work together really well and nicely. So those are the things that kind of group together as like a modern day trap sound. So you could have a piano, a flute, and a synth. You could have a guitar, a flute, and a synth. You could have a guitar and a piano and a flute. You can have like any combination of those and it's going to work out really well together. So I actually have an example of this open right now. What I have in here is I have a choir, which would be just like a synth or a pad. I have a piano sound and a flute. So the flute's just a little peck here and there. The piano, which is going to be the main sound, and then the choir to fill it. Alright, so all together they sound like this. Okay, and a reason why these instruments work really well together is because they're all the same kind of instrument. All of these instruments that I'm using are simulating real sounds. The flute's a real sound, like a real instrument. It's not some digital made-up sound with some weird distortion and crap on it. I have a realistic flute, a realistic piano with some reverb on it, obviously, and stuff. And then the choir is also a very realistic sound. So that's another thing, is you want to group your sounds together. If you have a realistic piano and a realistic flute, and then you try to stick in some weird pluck or synth that kind of has a dubstep or EDM tone to it, it might not fit very well because you have two real instruments and then one fake thing that kind of just throws the whole thing off. So usually if you're making real sounds, stick with all real sounds. You might be able to get away with throwing something in there every once in a while. And then when you're making something that's more EDM, trappy, hyper pop, something along those vibes, where you're using like bells and distorted things like that, try to keep those sounds together as well. Okay, now I want to talk about like drill and like dark trap beats. Things that are used a lot in these kind of beats are the piano. Piano is the dominant thing in these beats. Like drill beats, it's a dark piano. Dark trap, always a piano in there. Strings are another really big one that you can put in there. And synths, whether it be like a choir synth or some kind of dark, crazy, weird like vocals or anything like that. So dark synths can work really well for those types as well. Alright, so now I want to talk about like a tropical trap sound. So tropical trap vibes are going to be, alright, so it can be a marimba, a pluck, or like some steel drums and things like that. Those are all going to work really well together in like a tropical trap beat. Take this one for instance. I just have like some kind of a tropical pluck sound here. So, and that's not even a realistic sound whatsoever. It just happens to capture that tropical vibe, so it sounds really good in there. Okay, so for like trap beats, the melodies are usually a lot simpler, and then they don't really use like realistic sounds. Sometimes they do, but normally you'll hear things like bells, pianos that are really detuned, some crazy plucks or some synth noises, and there might only be like one or two layered together, or it might just be one by itself. But they're usually pretty simple and they're like distorted, you know, bit crushy sounding and detuned sounding instruments as well. So they're not very realistic. Here's an example of one. I have a guitar in here, but I have so many effects on the guitar, it doesn't sound like a guitar anymore. And then I have this bell right here, which is the lead. So let's listen to this. Okay, so for like orchestral trap kind of beats, things that work really well are strings, pianos, brass instruments, flutes, anything that you might find in an orchestra. So any real sounds work really well for this one. So in this beat, I have a lot of reverb on these things, but I have strings, a piano, and some bells, and it sounds like this. Alright, yeah, so for orchestral trap noises, you're looking for things that are extended, they're like longer notes, things that have lots of reverb on them, things like that as well. The last one I want to talk about, definitely not the last genre, but the last really common one's going to be like hyperpop. So for hyperpop, it's going to be a lot of plucks, bells. You can use fake noises, use a lot of fake noises for hyperpop, so like distorted bells, plucky synths, different things like that. Flutes work really well as well, so that's one real instrument, or you could detune it, make it sound crazy, but hyperpop tends to be a little more on the fake instrument side, so more distorted kind of vibes and stuff like that. Okay, so now I want to leave you guys with some tips. So when I'm making my beats, when I'm making my melodies, what I like to do is I have like a go-to instrument in my main categories. Like I have a go-to piano. You can see when I make a new default set, I always have a piano in there. A piano is a good instrument to start with because a piano can be the same thing as strings, can be the same thing as pads, organs, anything that has a similar long effect like a piano has. So what I'm trying to say is I could have something that I played out on the piano, and then I could put this right into one of those other instruments I just listed off, and it's going to sound good. It's going to sound just as good in those instruments as well. So a piano is a really good starting instrument to have. So pick out a good instrument to just start with and get your idea out. And then you can go back afterwards and you can go through all the different samples that you have until you find something that really makes the groove and the mood what you want. Okay, so the next thing I want to mention is I just gave you, let's see, I just gave you 6 different kinds of trap beats and trap melodies that you can go ahead and start working with. So it'd be a really good idea for you to start trying all of them out and start with the ones that you don't know first. So if you've never made a hyperpop beat, go make a hyperpop melody and then make a beat with it. If you've never made drill or darker trap kind of beats, do that. If you haven't made tropical, do that. Try one of these newer ones out and just see what you can do. And as you're trying out these different combinations and you're active listening to the different songs that you like, the different trap songs, start to pick out and notice what instruments work well in each genre. And how is that relating to what you're doing when you get in your DAW? Are you picking up the same kind of instruments? Are you going for the same kind of feels? Start comparing and contrasting them that way, and then it'll get you to start getting better at sound selection and like knowing exactly what you want. And as a bonus tip, if you want to get really good at sound selection, spend like a whole day or a couple days with a couple hours each day. Spend a good amount of time just making melodies. Just make different kind of melodies. Take each one of these different categories that I just listed in this video and try to make a melody in each of the categories. If you do that, I guarantee you will be better at making melodies by the 6th one. It's going to be magic. But anyways, guys, that's how you get really good at sound selection for your melodies and some different categories that you can start using and different instruments that are going to work in those categories time and time again. So if you guys like that one, smash the like button for me for the YouTube algorithm. And if you're new to the channel, hit that subscribe button because we're uploading YouTube videos every single day and you're not going to want to miss out on them. But besides that, I'll be talking to you guys again in the next one. Peace out.